On the 7th of June, 1944, forces from Canada took their initial captives from the notorious 12th SS Panzer Division close to Caen. They anticipated battle-tested Wehrmacht fighters. What they discovered shocked them. Adolescents, youths barely 17 years of age, born in 1926, displaying cocky grins while wielding Germany's finest weaponry. Before the day ended, these adolescents would perpetrate an atrocity that determined their destiny. The Normandy campaign would transform into a methodical elimination operation. More than 20,000 brainwashed youths would dwindle to merely 300 remaining soldiers across 77 days. Look at this image. Youthful faces in German military attire. Oversized helmets. Looks combining rebelliousness and weariness, with a Panther combat vehicle barely discernible through the haze behind them, featuring 80mm frontal protection and a 75mm cannon accurate beyond 2,000 meters. This confronted the Canadians on the 7th of June 1944, close to Eye and Buren. Their assumption was seasoned Wehrmacht troops. Reality delivered youngsters. If you're interested in how wars are actually decided by logistics, math, and doctrine, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more in-depth World War II analysis. Let's continue. Canada's 3rd Infantry Division had advanced from Juno Beach. What met them was a counter-strike defying logic. Those engaging them, operating those imposing Panthers, entered the world in 1926, 17 years of age. Youths who belonged in classrooms now controlled combat vehicles with 80mm frontal protection and 75mm weaponry, equipment capable of eliminating Sherman armor from ranges where Allied gunners couldn't engage back. This represented the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth. Their arrival in Normandy brought equipment any military leader would covet: 81 Panther vehicles, 78 Panzer IVs. Technological superiority across all metrics. Yet these advanced systems were manned by adolescents given accelerated training spanning months rather than years. Their leaders, Fritz Witt, born 1908, plus Kurt Panzer Meyer, 33 years old, brought Eastern Front experience that converted youth organization gatherings into fighting forces. They substituted warfare principles for campfire melodies. The initial 2 days demonstrated the deadly contradiction. These green teenagers caused 1,200 Canadian losses through pure aggression and zealotry. Units including the North Nova Scotia Highlanders and Royal Winnipeg Rifles became trapped by opponents fighting with reckless ferocity. A Canadian commander expressed the shock. Their combat resembled fanaticism. Positions remained defended until complete annihilation. This wasn't military expertise. This represented ideological passion converted to battlefield performance. Youths indoctrinated at age 10 that Adolf Hitler embodied divinity, that sacrificing themselves for Germany meant ultimate glory, now demonstrated their complete absorption of these teachings. Assaults came when withdrawal made sense. Defensive positions held when abandonment was logical. Standard military calculations became inverted, not via expertise, but through a death acceptance that experienced troops couldn't replicate. Yet Canadian astonishment would become revulsion within hours, as these adolescents hadn't solely received combat instruction. They'd learned that compassion equaled vulnerability, that warfare conventions didn't constrain the superior race. Between June 7th and 8th, they would demonstrate this through horrific actions. Return to 1933. Nuremberg. Countless youths arranged in flawless ranks. Firelight transforms darkness to brightness. Synchronized voices echo under massive swastika displays. This wasn't military pageantry. This represented a Hitler Youth Assembly. The singing youths weren't combatants. Not at that time. Their ages reached just 10 years. For those born in 1926, who would comprise the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth, Adolf Hitler transcended political authority. He represented the sole authority figure in their experience. Starting at 7 years, enrollment in Hitler Youth became mandatory. Beginning at 10 years, weekend encampments taught navigation skills, directional finding, tactical squad operations. military capabilities masked as wilderness activities, participation in literary destruction ceremonies, celebrating as objectionable books burned, completion of quasi-military exercises using training weapons, childhood recreation transformed into combat preparation. Upon reaching 17, these youths had logged more hours in Hitler Youth attire than civilian garments. According to a later Canadian interrogator's account, Germany represented their parent. Adolf Hitler embodied their deity. Belief in their mission wasn't optional. Alternative perspectives remained unimaginable. During early 1943, Hitler mandated formation of a panzer division from these devoted believers. The 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth would consist exclusively of youth organization members born in 1926. 17-year-olds subjected to 10 years of indoctrination, yet fanaticism alone couldn't secure victories. These youths required commanders. Hitler assigned the most ruthless killers produced by the Eastern Front. Fritz Witt, born 1908, Knight's Cross holder from the 1st SS Panzer Division, Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler. Kurt Meyer, 33 years old, who'd secured oak leaf additions to his Knight's Cross via aggressive armored operations in Russia. Panzer Meyer became his designation. These weren't educators. These represented veterans schooled in warfare through Eastern Front brutality, now tasked with converting fanatical youngsters into fighting troops. Meyer's leadership approach became doctrine throughout the division: triumph or demise. Opposition must fall regardless of personal cost. This wasn't inspirational rhetoric. This constituted prophecy. Equipment allocation matched Germany's finest: 20,540 personnel, 81 Panther vehicles featuring 80mm Glacis protection, plus 75mm KWK, 42 L70 cannons, 78 Panzer IVs, 48 artillery pieces. Panthers achieved 46 km hourly on highways, though terrain reduced this to 24 km hourly. Their 40mm lateral protection created flank vulnerability. Documentation suggested formidable capability, yet preparation was hasty. Mere months versus standard annual Panzer Division training. Priority wasn't tactical refinement. Priority was offensive action, perpetual advancement, combat until expiration. Late May 1944 brought select units experimental MP-44 assault weapons for July assessment. By May 1944, positioning southeast of Caen designated them as rapid response reserves against Allied penetrations. The youths displayed eagerness, arrogance, conviction of superiority. Reality awaited them, along with crimes guaranteeing their elimination. June 7th, 1944 witnessed the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth launching their counterstrike. They engaged Canadian 3rd Infantry Division plus British forces at Althie, Buren and Puteaux. The intensity astounded Allied veterans. These adolescents displayed suicidal offensive spirit. Within 2 days, Canadian losses reached 1,200. Canadian reports conveyed incredulity. Combat resembled fanaticism. Defence continued until final casualties. The North Nova Scotia Highlanders alongside Royal Winnipeg Rifles sustained catastrophic damage. Major General R.F.L. Keller, commanding 3rd Canadian Infantry Division, observed his formations devastated by 17-year-olds, genuinely preferring death over withdrawal. Briefly, Nazi indoctrination appeared to generate unstoppable combatants. Teenage youths lacking self-preservation instinct. Kurt Meyer personally directed counterstrikes, his Panthers breaking Canadian lines using identical aggressive methods from Russia. Yet amid tactical gains, the Hitler Youth committed actions transforming the entire operation from military engagement to elimination warfare. Between June 7th and 8th, 1944, Arden Abbey, a medieval religious structure with stone construction standing for centuries near Caen. Within those structures, events unfolded, sealing the destiny of 20,000 German adolescents. 20 Canadian combatants stood within the abbey's grounds. Capture occurred during combat at Althie and Buren. Their captors were youths from the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth, 17 years old. Some retained cocky expressions Canadian observers noted earlier that day. Since age 10, they'd learned compassion meant vulnerability. Opponents merited no mercy. The killings proceeded methodically. Individual shots to skull bases, sequential executions, remains left in place among vegetation and landscaping of what had been tranquil monastery grounds. By June 8th, 20 Canadian captives lay dead, not combat losses. Murdered following. Capitulation. When reports reached Allied leadership, fundamental shifts occurred. These ceased being misguided youngsters. They transcended enemy combatant status. They became war criminals. Consequently, response would be absolute. Major General R.F.L. Keller transmitted massacre reports through command hierarchy. Return directives were unambiguous: no mercy, no compassion. The 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth just became priority targeting for every weapon platform Allied forces possessed. Calculate the figures. 20 murdered captives. Across subsequent 77 days, roughly 20,000 German adolescents would perish fighting in Normandy, a ratio of 1 to 1,000 between crime and retribution. Whether this constituted justice or arithmetic becomes irrelevant. This represents what occurred. Canadian combatants, initially feeling peculiar sympathy observing these youthful opponents, now perceived differently. These weren't youngsters requiring rescue from Hitler's ideology. These represented dangerous true believers requiring systematic destruction. The Arden Abbey massacre transformed Allied approach. Prior to June 7th, the 12th SS represented simply another German formation requiring defeat. Following June 8th, they were designated for annihilation. British artillery batteries received directives to prioritize 12th SS locations. Soon, they'd deliver 10,000 rounds daily onto sectors where Hitler Youth entrenched. RAF Typhoon formations began dedicated sorties against the division. Royal Navy battleships offshore modified bombardment schedules. The youths committing those killings believed they were predators, superior combatants eliminating inferior opposition. They were about to learn what being hunted by an industrial warfare apparatus meant, one capable of concentrating more destructive power in a single afternoon than the entire Wehrmacht possessed monthly. The massacre determined their fate. Next came the grinding. Sound arrived first. Perpetual. Rolling detonations never ceasing. British 25-pounder weapons launching 12-kilogram rounds at 24 per minute. Then Typhoon engine whine overhead. Then ground-shaking impacts from 60-pound rocket munitions striking positions. Every several minutes, a completely different sound. The deep, catastrophic thunder of 16-inch naval cannons from HMS Rodney offshore. Projectiles weighing 929 kilograms, nearly a metric ton of high explosive, arcing skyward before erasing entire headquarters. This defined fighting the Allies in Normandy. Not soldier versus soldier. Not armor versus armor. This was industrial annihilation. Picture being 17 years old, crouching in earthworks near Caen, unable to observe your opponent, unable to strike back, unable to accomplish anything except endure. Earth trembles, atmosphere fills with debris and combustion products. Hearing damaged by concussive force, and it persists endlessly. During major operations like Epsom and Charnwood, British and Canadian guns delivered up to 10,000 rounds daily on 12th SS locations. 10,000. That's an impact somewhere in your area every 8 seconds, continuously, day and night. When artillery ceased, aircraft arrived. RAF Typhoons plus American fighters averaged 60 missions daily against divisional sectors. They released over 500 tons of explosives weekly. Those RP-3 rockets with 60-pound warheads could defeat armor protection from above. Your Panther's thick forward armor became meaningless when death descended from overhead. On June 14, 1944, near Venoix, one of those massive naval rounds found Fritz Witt's headquarters. The 36-year-old Eastern Front veteran simply vanished. No dramatic final resistance, no tactical genius, just obliterated by ordnance fired from a battleship invisible miles at sea. Consequently, Allied methodology became transparent. As one British commander stated, you couldn't defeat fanaticism in combat. You had to pulverize it. The 12th SS wasn't an adversary requiring defeat. It represented a problem requiring elimination. Their bravery became irrelevant. Their superior panthers became irrelevant. Their death acceptance became irrelevant. The Allies had transformed this into mathematics. Explosive tonnage multiplied by delivery rate equals dead adolescents. No glory, no triumph, just methodical destruction. Kurt Meyer, now commanding following Witt's demise, witnessed his division ground down by forces they couldn't engage. His aggressive counterstrike principles, his tactical acumen, all meaningless against opponents who simply maintained distance and transmitted coordinates for more artillery, more aircraft, more naval bombardment. Yet firepower alone wasn't sufficient. The Allies possessed another capability proving even more catastrophic. They could deny the division everything necessary for combat. And that's precisely what occurred. The Panther remained stationary in Norman Hedgerow. Its extended 75mm cannon aimed uselessly skyward. Inside, 5 teenage youths, none exceeding 18, listened to Typhoon engine whine circling overhead. They possessed one of Germany's most sophisticated armor platforms, 80mm glacis protection, 40mm lateral protection, a weapon capable of destroying Shermans at 2,000 meters, the most technologically advanced armored platform Germany ever produced, and movement was impossible. Transmission failure occurred 3 days prior. They'd radioed for components, no reply received. They'd requested recovery. No vehicles available. Now waiting. Observing aircraft patterns. Knowing what follows. 60-pound rockets striking from above where protection was minimal. This was the Panther's critical weakness. Theoretically, it exceeded every Allied armor platform in Normandy. Practically, it represented mechanical disaster. The bocage terrain clogged its treads. Narrow passages destroyed its transmissions. Its elevated profile made perfect targeting. Its 46-kilometer highway speed dropped to 24 kilometers cross-country, and no replacements existed. Between June and August 1944, the division received precisely 12 replacement vehicles against losses of 140, a replacement rate of 8.5%. Many Panthers never reached combat. They broke down during transit. Their chronic transmission failures, converting advanced weapons into abandoned steel tombs. Yet Panthers weren't alone in breaking down. The entire logistics system was collapsing. Allied aircraft had converted every route into a kill zone. By July, 70% of German supply columns were being destroyed before reaching front lines. Consequently, the division was restricted to nocturnal movement. They advanced through darkness while Allied artillery pounded their positions continuously. Operational flexibility, the entire rationale Panzer divisions existed, simply vanished. The ammunition situation became catastrophic. By late July, armor crews reported under 20 rounds per vehicle. 20 rounds. Some Panthers, in Normandy, had expended more than that in single engagements. Back in June, infantry formations depleted grenades, then rifle rounds. Artillery batteries rationed shells like precious metal. And fuel. Fuel was worse. Deliveries decreased to providing sufficient for only 20 kilometers of movement. 20 kilometers. Insufficient to execute proper counterstrikes. Insufficient to reposition effectively. Barely sufficient to withdraw. The most mobile element in the German military was being starved into immobility. Meanwhile, the Allies just maintained fire. 10,000 artillery rounds daily, hammering 12th SS locations during major offensives. 60 air missions daily, 500 tons of explosives weekly. The adolescents with their superior equipment couldn't engage aircraft, couldn't counter battery fire against artillery positions miles distant, couldn't engage battleships firing from the Channel. The division received under 1,000 replacement personnel after initial losses against casualties. exceeding 19,000 troops, a 5% replacement rate. The calculations were irrefutable. The 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth was bleeding toward death. They couldn't maneuver, couldn't resupply, couldn't replace their casualties. Meyer's aggressive methods meant nothing when his armor had no fuel and his infantry had no ammunition. Yet the worst remained ahead. The Allies were about to seal the trap completely. Carpiquet Airfield, July 1944. The runway, once concrete, had become a lunar landscape of overlapping depressions. Burning Panzer IVs sent black combustion columns skyward. In damaged hangar remains, Canadian infantry from 3rd Division advanced through explosive residue fog and particulate matter. Teenage SS combatants engaged from behind twisted steel and demolished structures. This wasn't the dramatic armoured engagement of June 7th. This was something worse: industrial attrition. The gradual grinding elimination of the 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitler Youth. 1. Artillery bombardment at a time. The engagements around Caen throughout June and July. Operation Epsom June 26th through 30th. Operation Charnwood July 8th through 9th. Operation Goodwood July 18th through 20th. Weren't conclusive victories. They were a grinder. Every structure became a potential strongpoint. Every strongpoint became a target for massive firepower. British and Canadian weapons delivered 10,000 rounds daily on their locations. RAF Typhoons averaged 60 missions daily. And throughout, the teenage SS combatants maintained positions. They counter-struck. They expired in place rather than withdraw, and they caused terrible casualties doing so. Canadian 3rd Infantry Division sustained 700 fatalities, plus 2,000 wounded, specifically engaging the 12th SS during this time frame. British 3rd and 59th Infantry Divisions incurred roughly 2,000 casualties. These battles became among the costliest Allied infantry engagements in Normandy. Formations that had landed on Juno Beach, with assurance were devastated against positions defended by 17-year-olds who simply wouldn't collapse. One Canadian commander's documentation captured the terrible reality. Combat resembled fanaticism. Defense continued until final casualties. Yet fanaticism couldn't halt calculations. Every round, every rocket, every naval bombardment that the teenage combatants survived, their division deteriorated further. The division sustained over 1,200 casualties in the initial June 7th through 8th engagements, then over 3,000 casualties around Caen in June and July. Irreplaceable losses, because between June and August, the division received precisely 1,000 replacement personnel against casualties exceeding 19,000 troops. Armour strength: 150 Panthers and Panzer IVs in June had been reduced by over 90% by late July. Not primarily from engagement, from mechanical failures, component shortages, and fuel deficits. Those magnificent Panthers remained immobilized in hedgerows, abandoned when their transmissions failed and no replacements existed. The Hitler Youths, who had counterattacked with such shocking ferocity on June 7th, were now depleted, exhausted, maintaining positions they couldn't abandon because Meyer's principles allowed no withdrawal. They were being methodically ground down by opponents who had learned the terrible lesson. You didn't need to defeat these fanatics in combat. You just needed to outlast them. The engagements around Caen had bled the 12th SS White, yet the division still existed, still fought, still defended its locations with suicidal determination. Consequently, the Allies required a final resolution. In August, they would achieve one: the Falaise Pocket, where the fragments of Hitler's Youth Division would be trapped and systematically annihilated. August 1944. Examine the charts. The Allied pincers, Canadian elements from the north, American elements from the south, closing. Inside the contracting pocket near Falaise, the fragments of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth are trapped. The noose tightens. What follows isn't combat, it's methodical extermination. Picture the conditions inside that encirclement. Every Allied weapon platform in Normandy focuses on this single elimination zone. British artillery teams deliver 10,000 rounds daily into the containment. RAF Typhoons orbit overhead in rotations, 60 missions daily. Their 60-pound rocket munitions slamming into anything mobile. American fighters strafe the passages with 50-caliber weapons, and still, every several minutes, the catastrophic thunder of naval cannons from offshore, projectiles weighing nearly a metric ton, the passages become impassable. Burning Panthers and Panzer IVs obstruct every junction. Dead draft animals from logistics wagons decompose in August temperatures. Remains lie in drainage areas and roadsides, crushed into earth by armor treads. One survivor would later characterize it as hellish landscape. Perpetual detonations, wounded screaming, burning flesh and fuel odors mixing until distinction became impossible. No escape routes exist. Allied forces have sealed every opening. Kurt Meyer, commanding the division since Fritz Witt's June demise, knows his directives. Maintain the pocket opening. Permit other German formations to escape. It's a suicide assignment disguised as strategy. The division's fanaticism, once directed into offensive operations, now serves only to extend the suffering. Meyer directs a desperate breakout attempt. The remaining Panthers, perhaps 30 still functional, form a spearhead. Teenage grenadiers advance on foot. They assault with identical suicidal aggression they demonstrated at Orthy and Buren in June, yet this time they're not facing surprise Canadians on beaches. They're charging into established positions supported by overwhelming firepower. The breakout fails, then fails repeatedly again. Roughly 6,000 troops of the 12th SS are killed or captured in the Falaise Pocket alone. The passages become scrapyards of destroyed equipment and dead adolescents. Some formations fight to complete annihilation. Others surrender when ammunition depletes. Most simply perish. By August 22nd, when weapons finally silence, the arithmetic is irrefutable. The division that arrived in Normandy with 20,540 personnel and 150 armor vehicles escapes with 300 personnel and 10 vehicles. A 98.5% casualty figure. Among the most complete destructions of any military formation in history. The youths who had arrived in June with cocky grins and glory dreams, who had executed Canadian captives and fought with fanatic determination, were dead, captured, or fleeing eastward as devastated survivors. The weapon forged in hatred had been shattered by industrial reality. Fanaticism, it emerged, was no match for an avalanche of high explosives. Examine two images. The first, Nuremberg, 1938. Lines of Hitler youth in pristine uniform standing rigid, eyes luminous with certainty. Youths aged 12, 13, 14. The class of 1926. Their future extends before them like a vow. The second, May 1945. A column of teenage SS captives, faces sunken, uniforms soiled and damaged. The identical generation 7 years and a universe of suffering later. What occurred to these youths? The response is written in figures that should haunt us. The 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth entered Normandy with over 20,000 personnel. By August 22, 1944, only 300 remained. Yet that's just the beginning of the reckoning. Roughly 8,000 killed, 5,000 wounded, 7,000 captured or missing. A generation, youths who at age 10 were taught Hitler embodied divinity, who at 17 were given armor and told to perish for the Reich, fed methodically into the furnace of industrial warfare by a regime that knew it was dying and didn't care. The division was reconstituted. Naturally, the designation was too valuable to discard. By December 1944, sufficient replacements had been assembled to send the 12th SS into the Ardennes offensive. Yet these weren't the original youths. Those adolescents, the true believers, who had sung melodies about dying for Germany in 1943, who had fought with suicidal determination at Caen, were mostly dead or in Allied detention facilities. The reconstructed division was a phantom wearing a familiar designation, a shadow of what had been destroyed in Normandy. When final capitulation came in May 1945, the images tell the narrative better than any combat documentation. Compare them to June 1944. The arrogant confidence transformed to depleted defeat, visual testimony of what occurs when ideology encounters industrial reality. They had believed they were superior, racially, ethically, militarily. They had possessed some of Germany's finest equipment. They had been indoctrinated since childhood to never capitulate, never withdraw, never question. None of it mattered. Because here's what makes the narrative of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth different from every other SS division. Their legacy isn't post-war pursuit of aging war criminals. It's the profound catastrophe of a stolen generation. Youths who never had opportunity to choose differently, who were molded from age 10 into weapons, who believed every falsehood they were told, and who paid for those falsehoods with their lives. The 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Youth was supposed to represent Germany's future. Instead, they became its final sacrifice. Evidence that no amount of indoctrination, no level of fanaticism, no superiority of equipment can overcome the simple mathematics of industrial warfare. 20 Canadian captives executed at Arden Abbey. 20,000 German adolescents dead 77 days later. From 20,540 personnel and 150 armor vehicles to 300 survivors and 10 operational vehicles. A 98.5% casualty figure that stands as one of the most complete destructions of any military formation in history. The predators became the harvest. The future became the past. And 20,000 adolescents learned the harshest lesson in history. Ideology perishes rapidly under the weight of artillery rounds. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more World War II historical deep dives every week. Thanks for watching.